Heavenly Father, today I come before you just as I am, without hiding what is within me, recognizing that I need you to do a real work in my heart, because even if things may appear in order on the outside, I know that inside there are areas that are not aligned with you, thoughts that should not remain, attitudes that have formed over time, and ways of responding that do not reflect what you desire to establish in me. I do not want to begin this day being the same person within. I do not want to continue moving forward with an inner life that has not been corrected, because I understand that everything I do flows from what is in my heart, that my words, my decisions, and my actions are shaped by what has been formed inside of me. And if that does not change, then nothing truly changes. Your word in Psalm 51:10 says, "Create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within me." And today I come with that same request, not as something repeated out of habit, but as something I genuinely need, because I recognize that there are areas within me that must be transformed at the root, not adjusted on the surface. There are thoughts that have stayed longer than they should, ways of seeing things that are not aligned with your truth, and reactions that do not reflect the peace and direction that come from you. And I do not want to ignore that. I do not want to grow accustomed to it, and I do not want to justify it, because I understand that what is left uncorrected within me will continue to shape how I live. Today I come before you with honesty, not softening what is within me, not pretending that everything is fine, because I understand that you do not work on what I hide, but on what I bring before you with clarity, and today I choose to do that without holding anything back. I do not want to continue reacting from what I already know needs to change. I do not want to allow certain attitudes to keep repeating, or certain thoughts to keep taking space within me, because I understand that what remains in my heart eventually directs my life. And I do not want just anything directing my decisions. I want what you establish within me to be what leads me. Your word also says in Proverbs 4:23, "Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it." And I begin to understand that guarding my heart is not about ignoring what is wrong within it, but allowing you to correct what is not aligned, so that what flows from me is shaped by your truth, and not by what has been formed without you. You said in Ezekiel 36:26 that you would give a new heart and put a new spirit within. And I hold on to that today, not as something distant, but as something I need right now. Because I know that true change does not come from my effort alone. It comes from what you transform within me. I do not want a temporary adjustment. I do not want something that only appears different on the outside while everything inside remains the same. I want a transformation that remains, something that is evident in how I think, how I respond, and how I live, even when no one is watching. There are areas within me that I cannot fix by trying harder, patterns that repeat, thoughts that return, and attitudes that reform if they are not changed at their origin. And that is why today I do not rely on my own strength to correct them. I rely on you to transform them from within. Create in me a clean heart, not only free from what is not right, but filled with what comes from you. Establish within me a right spirit, one that is steady, aligned, and not easily moved. One that does not adapt to what is not from you, but remains grounded in what you are forming. Order what is within me. Align my thoughts with your truth. Correct what has been shaped incorrectly. And establish within me a different foundation, one that does not depend on how I feel in the moment, but on what you are intentionally building within me. Today I do not simply want to move forward. I want to move forward differently from within. I want what you do in my heart today to shape everything that follows, to be reflected in my words, in my decisions, and in how I walk through this day. And so, Father, I do not just speak these words. I place myself before you with full openness, allowing you to reach into the depth of who I am, trusting that what you begin to transform within me will not remain incomplete, but will continue until it is reflected in every part of my life. Father, as I stand before you in this moment, I become aware that what needs to be corrected within me is not something that can be adjusted by effort alone, because the condition of my heart is shaped in places deeper than what I can fully reach on my own. And if those places are not transformed, then what I carry inside will continue to shape everything I do, even when I desire something different. There are responses that rise within me without being examined, perspectives that have been formed over time, and internal tendencies that feel natural simply because they have been repeated. Yet I understand that what feels natural is not always aligned with what is right, and I do not want to continue living from what has been formed without you. Your word says in Jeremiah 17:9 that the heart is deceitful above all things and beyond cure, and I recognize the seriousness of that truth, because it reveals that I cannot rely on my own perception to define what is right within me. I cannot assume that what I feel or think is automatically aligned, and I cannot leave my inner life unexamined without consequence. At the same time, your word in Psalm 139:23-24 invites you to search me and know my heart, to test me and know my anxious thoughts, and to lead me in the way everlasting. And I take that as a posture I choose today, not hiding what is within me, not resisting what you reveal, but allowing you to examine what I cannot fully see on my own. There are areas where I have justified certain ways of thinking, not because they are right, but because they are familiar. And I understand now that familiarity does not equal alignment, and that what has been repeated often can begin to feel acceptable, even when it is not. I do not want to continue living from what has been formed through habit. I want what shapes me to come from you. I want what remains within me to be defined by your truth, not by what I have carried, not by what I have assumed, and not by what has gone uncorrected. Your word in John 15:3 says that I am already clean because of the word you have spoken, and I understand that your word has the authority to cleanse, not externally, but internally, reaching into the places where thoughts are formed and where intentions take shape. And I ask that your word would continue to do that within me. There are thoughts that need to be realigned, ways of seeing that need to be corrected, and internal responses that need to be reshaped. And I do not want to overlook those things or leave them unchanged. I want them to be brought into alignment with what you establish as true. Your word in 2 Corinthians 10:5 speaks about taking every thought captive and making it obedient to Christ. And I understand that this is not passive. It requires awareness. It requires willingness. And it requires that I do not allow my thoughts to remain unchallenged when they do not reflect your truth. I ask that what remains in my mind would be filtered through your word, that what I dwell on would be shaped by what you have said, and that what I allow to take root within me would be aligned with what you are forming, not with what has been left unexamined. There are internal patterns that have been reinforced over time, not because they are correct, but because they have not been interrupted. And I understand that if they are not addressed, they will continue to shape how I live, how I respond, and how I move forward. Your word in Colossians 3:2 tells me to set my mind on things above, not on earthly things, and I see that as a direction for how my thoughts are to be formed, not randomly, not passively, but intentionally aligned with what you establish as true. I do not want to continue thinking in ways that lead me away from alignment. I want my inner life to reflect what you are doing within me. I want my thoughts to be ordered by your truth. And I want my responses to come from a place that has been shaped by you, not by what I have carried over time. As I remain in this moment, I choose not to return to the same patterns of thinking. I choose not to accept what has already been exposed, and I choose not to allow what is misaligned to remain within me, because I understand that transformation begins where those patterns are corrected. And so, Father, I remain open before you, allowing you to continue examining, correcting, and refining what is within me, trusting that what you establish in my heart and in my mind will not remain incomplete, but will continue until it is fully aligned with what you desire to form in me. Beloved Father, I remain before you with the awareness that what you are doing within me cannot stay at the level of recognition alone, because seeing what needs to change is not the same as becoming different. And I do not want this moment to end in mere awareness without inward transformation. I want what you have brought into the light to be touched by your hand, shaped by your truth, and kept under your authority, so that my heart does not return to what you are exposing. Your word says in Ezekiel 11:19 that you give one heart and put a new spirit within, that you remove the heart of stone and give a heart of flesh. And I understand that this is not only about salvation in the broad sense, but about the daily work you do in a person who belongs to you, softening what has become resistant, renewing what has become dry, and restoring what no longer responds the way it should. There are places within me that have become guarded, responses that have grown rigid, and areas of my inner life that no longer yield easily. And I do not want to remain that way before you. I recognize that hardness does not always show itself in obvious rebellion. Sometimes it appears in subtle ways, in delayed obedience, in inward resistance, in the quiet preference for my own ways, or in the hidden desire to be corrected only where it is comfortable for me. But I do not want to place limits on your work within me. I do not want to give you access only to the areas that are easy to surrender while keeping other areas protected behind habit, pride, or fear. If my heart is to be made clean, then it must also be made tender, because what is clean but still resistant is not yet fully yielded. Your word in Psalm 86:11 says, "Teach me your way, O Lord, that I may walk in your truth. Unite my heart to fear your name." And that reaches me deeply, because I understand that a divided heart cannot remain steady. A divided heart cannot love what is right consistently, and a divided heart will always struggle between what you desire and what still pulls toward self. I ask you to unite what has been scattered within me, to gather what has been divided, and to bring my inner life into a place of reverent wholeness before you. There are affections within me that need to be purified, desires that need to be submitted, and motives that need to be examined beyond my own assumptions. I do not want to simply appear sincere while allowing self-interest to remain beneath the surface. I do not want to use spiritual language while keeping inner loyalties that are not fully yours. I want truth to reach beyond what I say and into what moves me, what drives me, and what secretly shapes my responses when no one else sees. Your word in Matthew 5:8 says that the pure in heart shall see God, and I understand that purity of heart is not sentimentality. It is inward integrity, a life within that is not mixed, hidden, or fragmented by competing loyalties. I ask you to guard me from becoming comfortable with half-formed obedience, with outward restraint but inward disorder, with moments of conviction that do not become lasting change. Your word in James 1:22 tells me to be a doer of the word and not merely a hearer deceiving myself. And I know that self-deception does not always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like hearing what is true, feeling moved for a moment, and then returning to the same internal patterns untouched. I do not want that. I want what you are speaking to go down deep enough that it alters how I think, how I respond, how I choose, and how I carry myself throughout this day and beyond it. Beloved Father, keep me from an inward life that is careless. Keep me from letting thoughts remain simply because they are familiar. Keep me from keeping attitudes that seem small but slowly shape the spirit I live from. Keep me from treating hidden matters as if they are unimportant simply because they are unseen by others. Your word in Song of Solomon 2:15 speaks of the little foxes that spoil the vines, and I understand that small things left unaddressed can weaken what is meant to bear fruit. So I ask you not only to deal with what is obvious, but also with what is subtle, what is quiet, what hides beneath routine, what survives under religious appearance, and what has gone undisturbed for too long. There are parts of me that need not only correction, but consecration. I do not want my heart merely emptied of what is wrong. I want it filled with what is holy, steady, and pleasing to you. Your word in Galatians 5 speaks of the fruit of the Spirit, and I understand that a clean heart is not empty space. It is fertile ground for what comes from you, for love that is not self-serving, peace that does not collapse under pressure, patience that is not forced, gentleness without weakness, and self-control that is not performance but formation. Let those things grow in me as evidence of what you are cleansing and renewing. I also ask that you would preserve this work from becoming temporary. Do not allow me to be moved only in this moment and then return unchanged by tomorrow. Establish what you are doing, strengthen what you are beginning, seal what you are forming. Your word in Philippians 2:13 says that it is you who works in me both to will and to act according to your good pleasure. And that gives me hope, because it reminds me that I am not asking for something beyond your willingness. I am asking for something you yourself are ready to produce in me. So, beloved Father, continue what you have started here. Keep my heart soft, my motives honest, my inner life uncovered before you, and my desires increasingly aligned with your holiness. Let what is being purified remain pure. Let what is being corrected remain under your truth. And let what is being renewed stay yielded to your hand, so that I do not merely speak about transformation, but live from a heart that has truly been shaped by you. Gracious Father, as this time before you comes to its close, I do not want what has been awakened within me to fade as the day begins. I want what you have stirred to be established, guarded and carried with intention, so that this moment is not something that passes, but something that remains active within me as I move forward. Your word in Psalm 51:10 has been my cry. Create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within me. And I do not treat those words as something temporary. I hold on to them as something that must continue shaping me beyond this moment. Because I understand that what you create, you also sustain, and what you begin, you are able to bring to completion. I recognize that the condition of my heart will be tested throughout this day, not in obvious ways, but in the ordinary moments, in how I respond when things do not go as expected, in how I think when no one hears my thoughts, and in how I carry myself when I am not being observed. And I do not want to return to old patterns in those moments. I want what you are forming within me to remain steady and active. Your word in Proverbs 4:23 says to guard my heart above all else, for everything I do flows from it. And I take that seriously, because I understand that what is established within me must also be protected, not with fear, but with awareness, not by withdrawal, but by remaining attentive to what I allow to take root within me. As I step into this day, I ask that what you have begun to shape in my heart would influence every part of my life, that my thoughts would remain aligned with your truth, that my responses would reflect what you are forming within me, and that my decisions would come from a place that has been ordered by you, not from what I have carried in the past. Your word in Philippians 4:8 instructs me to think about whatever is true, noble, right, pure, lovely, and admirable, and I choose to align my mind with that instruction, not casually, but intentionally, understanding that what I dwell on shapes what remains within me, and what remains within me shapes how I live. I do not want to allow my thoughts to drift back into what has already been exposed and corrected. I do not want to entertain what does not align with what you are doing within me, and I do not want to give space to anything that weakens what you are establishing in my heart. Your word in Psalm 119:11 says, I have hidden your word in my heart that I might not sin against you. And I understand that this is not about memorizing words alone. It is about allowing your truth to become part of my inner life, so that it shapes my responses before anything else does. I ask that your word would remain active within me, not only as something I remember, but as something that directs me, corrects me, and keeps me aligned, even in moments where I'm not consciously thinking about it, that it would become the foundation from which I live, not something external, but something internal and established. There will be moments where my thoughts are challenged, where my patience is tested, where my responses are pressured, and I do not want to fall back into what has already been addressed. I want to remain grounded in what you are forming within me, and I ask for the awareness to recognize when something within me begins to shift away from that alignment. Your word in Colossians 3:16 says to let the word of Christ dwell in me richly, and I take that as a responsibility I choose to carry, not passively, but intentionally, allowing your truth to take residence within me, to shape how I think, how I respond, and how I live throughout this day. I also ask that you would strengthen what you have begun, because I understand that maintaining a clean heart is not about perfection. It is about remaining in a place where I continue to be shaped by you, where I remain open to correction, and where I do not resist what you reveal. Your word in 1 Thessalonians 5:23 speaks of you sanctifying completely, and I hold on to that, knowing that what you are doing within me is not partial, it is complete in its purpose, and it continues as long as I remain open and responsive to you. So as I move forward into this day, I do so with a different awareness, not relying on my own strength to maintain what has been started, but trusting in you to continue the work within me, to sustain what you have established, and to guide me in a way that reflects what you are forming in my heart. Gracious Father, keep my heart aligned, keep my thoughts ordered, keep my responses shaped by your truth, and let what you have done within me today remain active, steady, and evident in every part of my life, not only in this moment, but in everything that follows. As I continue walking before you with a heart that is being shaped, established, and kept by you, Amen.